Hello, 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 everyone. I hope you are doing well today. We are back for another episode of Live at Five Matters of the Heart. And today we're going to be talking about setting boundaries. Setting boundaries is not a sin, is a title that I came up with. So I am glad that you all are here today. Hope you are doing well on this Tuesday afternoon. All is well with me. It's been a busy, actually, past couple of months, and have a few more weeks of travel and things going on. So busy, busy time for me. But I look forward to this time that we have together. And as I always say, we're not going to be on here long, but I want to share a couple of things with you, and I'll tell you really how this all got started. This topic of boundaries. I ask you all at the end of every Live at Five that we do. I ask you to let me know some things that you would like for me to talk about, some things that are on your mind, on your heart. And I got a couple of responses, actually more than a couple of responses, and boundaries was kind of a consistent theme. And so after I made it through what we had down for our the beginning of our schedule, wanted to slide this in here to really talk about setting boundaries, what that looked like, because I know it's can be a difficult topic, a difficult subject sometimes. And I think that honestly, as particularly as believers, I think sometimes we struggle with setting boundaries because for some reason I think we may view it as if we're setting boundaries, we're not showing love to other people, we're not being lovable, we're not being nice to them, when actually I see it the exact opposite. I actually see setting boundaries as a very loving act, not only to others but also for ourselves. And so when we talk about setting boundaries and what that really looks like, and there are lots of different ways and lots of different areas, I'll put it that way, in which we can set boundaries. We can talk about obviously physical boundaries, emotional boundaries, and that's what we're going to talk about today, specifically emotional boundaries. But we can talk about setting boundaries in in physical settings, and emotionally we can talk about financial boundaries. We can talk about setting boundaries in lots of other areas of our life. But I do want to talk about specifically emotional boundaries today. We can even I think time boundaries is something that we can do. We just think about putting some bookends on the specific areas of our life. Um, and simply put, when we just think about what it really means to set boundaries, but again, talking about emotional boundaries in particular, really what we're talking about is doing things that are going to protect our emotional well-being. That's really what we're talking about when it boils down to it. So, doing things that are going to protect our emotional well-being is really what emotional boundaries is about. And that can sound really easy, but I think if a lot of people are honest and looking back and reflecting on the feedback that I've gotten, um, it doesn't seem to be quite as easy for a lot of people. So that's why obviously we're having this conversation today. So a couple of things I think that can hinder us when we're trying to set those healthy boundaries in our relationships. I think there are a few things that tend to be kind of the rub, if you will, or the thing that may keep us from being able to really remain consistent with those boundaries. And the first one I think is fear of conflict, which I think is normal. I don't believe any of us enjoy having conflict. I don't think most people really enjoy being at odds with others, particularly individuals that we love and that we care about, because it tends to strain on the relationship. So I think fear of conflict is one reason why we may struggle with setting boundaries in our relationships. Another reason I think may be the fear of disapproval, or I'll put it this way, the desire for approval. Maybe that may be a better way to put it. So I think that can be an issue when we're trying to set boundaries. I think that can be one of the things that can make it hard for us, is because we want to be approved, and so that is that desire for approval. But recognizing that when we begin to set boundaries, perhaps that's not going to be the case anymore. So that's number two. Another reason could be guilt or obligation, and this is never a positive, I would say, in a relationship when we are doing anything out of guilt or obligation, because it's not coming from a place of genuine desire, a place of genuine love and care. And so, what happens then if we're operating from a place of guilt or obligation, then that can easily turn into bitterness and frustration and anger and those sorts of things that can again continue to erode the relationship. Another reason I think we struggle with setting boundaries could be our own past hurts, and past relationships and past trauma, things that have previously that either we haven't necessarily worked completely through, we haven't been able to get our emotions in line with in a current situation, and so we're kind of bringing that into new relationships. So that sometimes can hinder us from setting boundaries. And then I think another one could just simply be difficulty in communicating. We talked about communication skills a few weeks ago and talked about different techniques that we use in communicating. But another, and I think that's a very simple one that can sometimes hinder us from being able to set boundaries, simply not knowing how to communicate that and have difficult conversations with people, which is a reality for a lot of people. So, having said that, what I want to do is just give us five quick tips, and we may add on this and do another session on boundaries. We'll see what you guys think, but I want to just give you five quick tips to help you as you begin to set boundaries in your relationships. And again, we're talking today about setting emotional boundaries. And so if you're in a situation where things are happening that don't feel right, that don't feel good to you in a relationship, you find yourself giving a whole lot more other individual, and you're in a situation where things are not being reciprocated. You're in a situation where you feel that there may even be some emotional abuse. That's a whole nother conversation. But setting boundaries is going to be exceedingly important. So the first thing that I want you to know and understand is, and number one that we want to talk about is, and I'll pop this up here, is to prepare for pushback. When you begin to set boundaries in any relationship, I want you to be prepared that there's going to be some pushback. And here's why. Anytime a system begins to change, if one part of the system starts to change, the other parts of the system have to respond to that. And if the other parts of the system are not ready to change or don't even believe that there needs to be change, expect some pushback. So I think that's the first thing that you have to do, is have the mindset and recognize that there's going to be some pushback. Because if you go in believing that everything's going to be just smooth sailing and roses and rainbows and everybody's going to be fine with it, and that doesn't happen, that can deter you, that can be frustration, that can be discouragement. And so then you shrink back and don't hold fast to what it is you're really trying do. So that's the first thing I want you to keep in mind when you begin to set boundaries in your relationship, setting those emotional boundaries. Make sure that you prepare for pushback. Okay. The next one is take time to reflect on your needs. This is so important because before you can communicate, before you can even talk about setting a boundary, you need to know for yourself what's going on, what's really bothering you. You need to be able to identify that for yourself, so then you can determine, what is it that I need? What's the change that I need to see? What is it that I need to see from this other person so that we can move in the direction of a more healthy relationship, from an unhealthy relationship where boundaries are being crossed and we are not connecting and communicating, and being close to one another in the way that we should, in the way that we want to. So the first part is prepare for pushback. Acknowledge that it may not go as smoothly as you want right away. But then the second part is spend some time with yourself, identifying and reflecting on your own needs. What is it that you need when you begin to share whatever the boundary is that you're going to set? And so then that leads to number three, which is be clear and specific. So after you've spent some time with you, after you've spent some time thinking through what it is that you need, spent some time thinking through the changes that you really want and need to see, now you have to communicate that to the other individual dealing with. And this could be spouse, this could be boyfriend, this could be children, this could be employer, this could be another family member. But now you have to communicate to them in a way that they are going to understand. So the first way you need to do that is to be very clear and very specific with what it is that you are want, what it is that you're willing to do, what is it you're not willing to do, and what it is you're no longer willing to accept is going to be key. So it's not just about what you're going to do or not do. It's also communicating very clear and very specific what you are no longer willing to accept. Now, here's the thing. When I go back to number one, prepare for pushback, what you have to keep in mind is you cannot control the other individual's response. What you can control is communicating what it is that you identifying your own needs, being clear and specific with them, and giving them the opportunity to respond to you in a positive way. But understand you cannot control if they do not. And so then that gets us to number four, which is get additional support if needed. You may need to sit with a counselor. You may need to sit with a therapist. You may need to sit with a trusted friend. You may need to sit with a trusted elder, an older woman, an older gentleman that you know, that you trust, that you can have a really honest and transparent conversation with to get some additional support for you if after you've been clear and specific, you're still not seeing and you're still not getting the response that you most importantly that you want, but most importantly that you need in order to remain in the relationship in a way that is healthy, that is emotionally healthy for you. And then number five, you have to be consistent. Again, understand that setting a boundary doesn't mean that you set it today and instantly things are going to change. Typically, things take time. It didn't take overnight for you to get in this place. And it's likely not going to take overnight for it to change. But what you should be able to see are slow changes in the process. You should be able to see effort. You should be able to have conversations where you can communicate what's going on and what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and what it is that you're needing. But you have to be consistent with the boundaries. So going back to number four, when we talked about, or number three, rather, when we talked about being clear and specific, and being specific about, again, not only what you want, what you need, what you're going to do, what you're not going to do, but also what you're not going to accept in a relationship. Part of being consistent is if that thing comes up, you have to be consistent in doing what you said you would or wouldn't do. So I'll just throw out an example. And this is, this isn't a serious one, but we'll go with, if my husband is notoriously late, I'll just throw that out there. And for me, that is something that is eroding in our relationship because it's causing us to be late for important meetings. It's causing us to be late for, let's say, the kids' events. It's causing me to be late to work. Let's say we're sharing a car and it's causing me to be late to work, and that's causing problems on the job. And the issue becomes if he's not respecting the fact that it's causing additional issues for us. And so a simple boundary may be, hey, we need to leave by 8:00. If you're not downstairs and in the car at like 7:59, I'm going to have to make some other arrangements. And when that happens, you have to follow through with those other arrangements. Now that may mean that the other arrangement, maybe you have to call Uber. Now, the important part about being consistent is when that happens, you have to follow through with whatever you communicated you were going to do or not do, or what it is you were not going to accept. That is the way in which you can be consistent. And it can be difficult. It can be very frustrating. But you have to remain consistent in order to move the needle and to keep the boundary set so that you can actually see the change happen. And again, in all of these, keep in mind, I didn't say this at the beginning, but keep in mind in all of these, everything that we're doing and everything that we're saying, everything that we're communicating from a place of love. We're not being dogmatic. We're not being demanding. We're not talking down to one another. Again, all the things that we talked about when we talked about communication skills, everything that we're communicating from a place of love. Okay. And then finally, I'll throw additional, that was number five, be consistent. So I'll give you one other just as a bonus. Number six, Learn to say no. No can actually be your best friend when you're trying to set boundaries. No does not require an explanation. No does not require any additional information. No does not require anything other than no. So if someone asks something of you that you're not comfortable doing, that you're not able to do in the moment, that you don't want to do in the moment, no really is an acceptable response. Because here's what happens when you give a yes to something that you don't want to do, you're not able to do, or you're not comfortable doing. You're not going to do it to the best of your ability, and there will inevitably be backlash on the back end. Even if you get it done, but it's something that you are now angry and bitter about. That's an emotion that you really didn't have to take on had you been honest and set the boundary in the beginning with a simple no. And I know a lot of people struggle with that, but I want to give you permission and I want to encourage you to use that no when you want to, when you need to. No is a complete sentence. All right. So those are actually the 6 things that I want to give you when we talk about setting boundaries. All right. We'll go back through them really quickly and I'll put them so you can see them. So number 1 is prepare for pushback. We've talked about that. Number 2, take time to reflect on your needs. Make sure that you know what it is that you need, that you want. Number 3, be specific. Be clear and specific when you're communicating that. Number 4, get additional support if you need it. Don't be afraid to ask for outside help, but make sure that when you're asking for the help, you're asking for that help from someone who's actually capable of providing the help, a trusted individual in your life. Number 5, be consistent. It can be frustrating, it can be difficult, but you have to be consistent once you've set the boundary. And then I gave you 6 as a bonus, and that was learn to say no. So listen, I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope this kind of gives you a bit of a framework to use, some tips that you can use. If you're in a situation where you're struggling with setting some boundaries, you're in a situation where things are more difficult than you would want them to be, and you recognize that it really is an issue of boundaries that are being crossed and lines that are being pushed too far one side or the other, and you really need to set some hard boundaries. And so these are some tools that you can use. So I want to encourage you, if you have not subscribed to my newsletter, make sure that you do that. You can hop over to the website at katherinebarner.org, subscribe to the newsletter. The main newsletter has already gone out. So those of you who are subscribed to the newsletter, you should have that already. Check your email, check your spam if you have not gotten that. If you just like for me to send it again, shoot me a quick email. I'll be happy to do that for you. You can always email me to info@katherinebarner.org. Remember, that is where you can send all of your emails. I'm happy to check that. And then again, always you can follow me here on Facebook and on Instagram at Miss Cat Speaks. You can DM me. Send me a message and I'm happy to connect with you. So again, I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope you have a wonderful evening, wonderful afternoon. Again, if there's things that you would like for me to talk about, kind of like this is how this one on boundaries came up. I got a couple of responses, some emails that people really wanted to talk about this. So if there's something that's in your head, something that's on your heart that you would like for me to cover in our Live at 5, our Matters of the Heart sessions, let me know. Send it over to me and I will be happy to do that. So I look forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks. That will be, I want to say May 30th, maybe not, but whatever 2 weeks from now is. So I will see you right back here, 5 o'clock Central Time. Until then, take care. Look forward to talking to you. Have an amazing week and we will talk soon. Bye-bye.